Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name is Nathan Harvey, and as always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How you doing today on a beautiful Monday evening? How are you?
I'm fine. I'm really good. I'm looking forward to the show. Got some good topics here.
Yeah, we do.
Interesting stuff. So let's get right into it, Nate.
Absolutely. Let's jump right into it. Let's be with our first topic of today because it's quite interesting. Steve Kerr has made his first comment about the Chris Paul trade, which we both thought was quite strange. How they had problems with size all throughout the year, and instead they give up a very young player in Jordan Poole and bring along a 38-year-old point guard who has injury history.
And also plays in a half-court offense for the most of the time, and now is going to a motion offense that's fast break mostly.
Right, so it didn't make a lot of sense for the Warriors to make the trade, but Steve Kerr defended his statement, defended his trade by saying this. The biggest point is that we sensed we needed a shift. Didn't mean we needed an overhaul, but we needed a shift of some sort. I think everybody in the organization sensed that, and it feels like we've made a pretty significant shift without giving up our identity and our send of who we are as a team. Very weird from, like, I don't necessarily agree with that statement because, like you just said,
How did they not give up their identity when Chris Paul plays in a half-court
exactly,
offense?
that's exactly what I was going to say. You literally stated that Chris Paul plays an entirely different offense. He plays a pick-and-roll offense, and he's slow bringing the ball up.
Right.
Draymond Green, who they'll probably re-sign, it seems like all signs are pointing to re-signing Draymond Green, even though the Mavericks are involved and the Kings are involved, could be in signing Draymond Green. Draymond Green, Steph Curry, they all push the ball up the court, and Chris Paul is a slow guy, and they don't play that pick and roll. They set a screen, that's usually Draymond Green, for Curry and Klay to shoot threes. So I don't necessarily agree with this statement from Steve Kerr, but I want to know...
What else is he going to say, though?
I
mean, you know...
You could say something right.
I think what they wanted to do, I mean, they're going along with what Stephen Curry wants, right? And he wants to hold the group together. So holding the group together means Jordan Poole's out because the Draymond Green punching of Jordan Poole is a note, a significant event in the Warriors' history now that they've got to erase somehow. And the only way to do that is to either get rid of Draymond Green or get rid of Poole, and they can't get rid of Draymond Green because it upset Steph Curry. So this was the alternative. It holds the core three together, right. Green, Thompson, and Curry, and it brings in Chris Paul, who he's going to get gassed playing in that offense, right, when he's 38 years old. So do they have another point guard? Who else can play point guard? Well, Stephen Curry can play.
It's Steph Curry, yeah.
Steph Curry can play point guard. Is there anyone else?
You got a couple of guys that I don't necessarily trust. You got Moses Moody, but he's a shooter. He's another guard. I don't believe Dante DiVincenzo is a free agent, but I'll look that up. You have him, who he was somewhat efficient, I'll say, for them. He wasn't, he was a role player though. He was a role player.
So is Curry and CP3 going to be on the court at the same time?
My guess is no. My guess is no. Because
how can they be, really?
Right, you need to probably move
because Curry
Klay
is the other point guard. He's the number one point guard. CP3 is the backup.
Right. Yeah. And so now my guess was, because a huge asterisk of the Warriors season was, we saw it in the playoffs against the Kings. When Curry would come off the court, the Warriors offense would go almost to zero. Because the plus minus, the exact number is like absurd. It's like plus 100 something with Curry on the court, and it could be minus 100 something with Curry off the court. So it was Curry in that first team, whatever set 5 Curry was on. Then when he goes off, the Warriors just are terrible in offense. So this could be that the Warriors will manipulate their very high IQ style of basketball slightly for that second group, probably with Chris Paul. They'll do more setting screens. They'll slow down the tempo. And if it doesn't necessarily need to be, it doesn't need to be, negated when Curry comes off the floor. You just go back to net zero. It could be minus 10, but it shouldn't be minus like 100 something when Curry gets off the court. So this could be that Chris Paul comes on the court and it negates really any deficit of offense that the Warriors have with Curry off. The only problem is Chris Paul does not have that same skill set that Curry does. So you're going to need to change. It may be very, very confusing for young players to maybe come up with a 2-offense system depending on who's your point guard, who's bringing the ball up the court. If is it Draymond Green and Curry who's going to push the ball up the court, or is it Chris Paul that may take his time and works more in the pick and roll? So this could be a bad situation, but they did get rid of potentially a toxic situation again with Jordan Poole and Draymond Green. Yeah. Someone needed to go, and you bring in Chris Paul.
I think that I understand. I understand it, and I understand a little bit what Kerr is saying, because I don't think there's much else he can say. They want to keep Curry happy, and they would like to probably bring back Draymond Green,
right?
And bringing him back, the tougher if Poole was there.
Exactly.
So I think that now they have a shot, but Green did opt out of his player option, right?
He did.
So he's looking around.
He's trying to make that money.
Somebody may give him a deal that he can't refuse. He may look at one of these other teams and say, you know what? I got a better chance of winning a championship with them than I do with the Warriors.
I think that would be dumb on his part to say, let me just go out and make so much money. And I think it would be dumb for teams actually to say, oh, Draymond Green can just fit in our system, or changing your system or altering it for Draymond Green, because the way Draymond Green plays is a very specific set that only really works for the Warriors. You can't bring him in and say, let's put him in our system, because guess what? Draymond Green is not an offensive guy. He pushes the ball up the court, plays good defense. He's a distributor. He's mainly a distributor. But if you, like, for instance, the Mavericks, he could work on the Mavericks maybe, because everyone's like, oh, let's go get Luke a shooter. Let's go get him weapons on the offensive side. We've tried that a couple times. Jalen Brunson was probably the best option for him.
You're right. Maybe Green is good for Dallas.
You give him Kristaps Porzingis, not a tremendous defender, but offensively he's gifted. You bring in Kyrie, who could average 25 a game. It didn't work. You got to bring him some defense. Draymond Green, you could put him in that system and have him play really good defense.
Yeah.
The Kings, I don't think so. They are a high-flying offense, and for him to be a primary defender, I don't necessarily love that, because he doesn't have the size. The Warriors, it works out much, much better because they literally fit that. He fits that Warriors system. Mm-hmm. The thing I also find funny is Draymond Green said a couple years ago how he absolutely hates Chris Paul. He absolutely hates him. He respects the game, but as a person, he despises him. And then and by the way, there was a rivalry between Chris Paul, the Clippers, and the Warriors, as well also Chris Paul and the Suns and everything like that. This Warriors team and Chris Paul, they were at wits' end for years. They were rivals in the Western Conference.
Yeah.
Now,
Chris Paul never won much.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That is true. But they in 2012, 2013, the Clippers beat the Warriors, and then the very next year, that's when the Warriors took off. I remember that playoff series, and that's when I was like, okay, Warriors got this. I told my brother about that too. So I don't know. For Draymond Green to go anywhere else, I think that'd be a mistake. I'll say this for now. He got rid of Jordan Poole, that massive contract, like a lot of years for like $140 million, something crazy like that. Now, you can now sign Draymond Green to, it looks like a 3 to 4 year deal. I said 4. I think I said 5 years, 140.
Yeah, they did get money back, right? I mean, they got cap relief by making that trade.
So I think that's a good idea. But for Steve Kerr to say that if you make a move, quote, based on his quote, a pretty significant shift without giving up our identity and sense of who we are as a team, you're bringing in a guy that plays an entirely different offensive skill set than you do. And besides, Chris Paul with injuries is a huge knock, because if Curry's also pretty injury prone, he was injured last season. If you bring in Chris Paul when you need him, right, and he gets hurt, you really have no one else, and you're relying on a 38-year-old point guard to bring in that second team.
Yeah,
and if Curry's out, it's not going to work out.
The older these guys get, the higher the chance they're going to be hurt during the year. And the Warriors are getting to be an old team.
They are.
You look at the injuries that Klay Thompson had, right? Kept him out for more than a year.
Yeah.
Right? And he's back now, but you don't know. He's not young.
He's not the defender he used to be before the injury.
Yeah.
I don't know if he'll ever get that back, but I'm saying right now.
Probably not.
As of right now, do you think the Warriors are closer, the same distance, or farther away from a title signing Chris Paul? Or trading for Chris Paul, I guess I should say. In my mind, they're farther away.
Yeah.
In my mind, they're farther away.
It might be, well, maybe they're even where they were last year. I do think Chris Paul he's a quality player for sure.
Oh, he is.
And he brings something to the table. He brings aggression, and he brings he's a feisty player. He's more like Draymond Green than the rest of the Warriors team. I mean, Draymond Green is somebody who will get in your face and mix it up, and that's the way Chris Paul is too.
Right.
So that could be a dynamic that helps him out. I don't know. We'll see. But I don't think it helped them get that much closer to a championship. I think it just appeased the players. It appeased the players, but they have to go out and sign Green, right? And maybe they have to look for some more height.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
They have room to add one more player to somebody that's tall, because they are a kind of small ball team.
And I think that's where they're gonna find a lot of problems is when they're going up against a bigger team, because I feel like the NBA, I mean, Victor Wembanyama, who's over 7 feet tall, Embiid, who's huge, Jokic, who's huge, Giannis, who's huge, all these physical players, you're going up against them. Who are you going to put 6'6" Draymond Green on a Jokic or an Embiid or a Victor Wembanyama? You got Chet Holmgren on the Thunder. You got big guys who could shoot, and you're chilling with Kevon Looney, who's only a paint player, can get rebounds. He can't shoot for the life of him. You can put it on JaMychal Green. You didn't trust Jonathan Kuminga in the playoffs. He didn't really even play. So you're going to put it on young guys who are not as consistent as you would hope them to be, don't have the same size or physicality as these bigger players. So to me, this move didn't make a lot of sense outside of you're trying to get back a culture that you used to have. But you brought in one of your rivals from seasons ago. So
who plays a different kind of offense. Yeah. He's a big name.
He is.
Chris Paul's a big name. He's going to put fans in the seats.
Yeah.
Although they don't really have to worry about that too much at home, right? I think they sell out probably every night at home with the team that they have. So, I don't know. Be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, no, I agree. Chris Paul to the Warriors next season should be interesting to see. Nearly a 40-year-old future Hall of Fame point guard on a team with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and probably Draymond Green. It's going to be exciting to watch, but we will see. All right, let's get into our next topic, because it came out, I believe, yesterday or maybe today. There was a report out saying that the Suns plan on retaining center DeAndre Ayton, which is pretty strange because if we remember a couple seasons ago, DeAndre Ayton got into a big argument with Monty Williams, the former Suns head coach. Then in the offseason, they signed him to a big deal. And this season, he didn't play, phenomenally or really was a dominant force in the playoffs. He absolutely disappeared. And now the Suns, with new head coach Frank Vogel, plan on retaining him, which is quite interesting. So I want to know, is it the right move to keep DeAndre Ayton with the Suns' new big three?
I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, who else would they get to play center? I mean, he did average 18 points a game, 10 rebounds, 1.7 assists, shot almost 60% from the field, and played 67 games. So he's a reasonably reliable player who gives you a lot of minutes. So who else would they go get to play their center right now? There aren't that many. There aren't that many quality centers out there that you could. There are some really good centers, but they're not available.
Right.
Right? So who else would they get to play center for them?
Well, right now, he's the only center on the team. They're filled with forwards, guards, and only DeAndre Ayton is the only center listed on their roster so far.
I don't know who else they could go get.
You got Brook Lopez out there. You could try to
He's
trade
not really
for
a center
players.
anymore, though. Brook Lopez is a power forward.
You would say
he
he's a
doesn't
power
play center
forward
anymore. I think he's better at power forward too. I think he gets beat up when he plays center. I think he's big enough to do it, and he did it for the Nets for a number of years. But I think his better position is power forward.
Could be. Well, it depends on what you're trying to look for a center, right? I don't think you're gonna get the same 20 and 10 that or nearly 20 and 10 that DeAndre Ayton gives you. He scores 18 and 10. My problem is he wants the ball a lot. He thinks he's a scorer. He thinks he's this dynamic player who could easily get a bucket. That's not who DeAndre Ayton is, and especially with Bradley Beal and Devin Booker and KD, those guys all want buckets. Those guys are all bucket getters. And now DeAndre Ayton, he's gonna pout on basically on the sidelines or down low when Booker's hitting shots, Beal's driving to the lane, KD is pulling up from mid range, and DeAndre Ayton's sitting there like, yo, what about me? And I just think he hated on Monty Williams a couple years ago. Monty Williams is loved by every single player, it seems like, in the NBA. It seemed like he was 1 foot out the door last year. Then they re-signed him to a massive deal this year. He plays, and in the playoffs, he disappears against Jokic. Jokic absolutely dominated him in the paint. It was like Ayton wasn't even there. And
Jokic,
I
you know what? That's not the
year.
fairest comparison. Jokic could dominate everybody.
That's fair. No, I'll 100% give you that.
Yeah.
Some of the centers that you could get that is a free agent right now is Christian Wood from Dallas. He's a young player. Brook Lopez you could also get. Andre Drummond, he's beyond his prime, I think. Like Andre Drummond, I don't think he used to be a rebound machine. 20 rebounds there, 25 rebounds, and then he just disappeared now. Blake Griffin, he's still there. You pick up some Blake Griffin.
He's way past his prime.
Vucevic you can get. He's an older center. There's a couple guys that you can get that are all-stars and starters, but a lot of them are role players that I don't think can necessarily match DeAndre Ayton. But I think if you don't need to match DeAndre Ayton, what's your motor? Because right now DeAndre Ayton I don't think has much of a motor left at all. Because I don't see that drive, that determination, and if he doesn't get the shots he thinks he deserves, he pouts. He gets all upset because he thinks he's one of the main bucket getters on the Suns.
Well, maybe the coaching change will be good for him.
I'm sure he will. For me, it's not the right move. It isn't. You could find more forwards, get a couple more forwards to maybe fill that center spot. I think maybe the Knicks could probably give you something for DeAndre Ayton.
Hartenstein?
No, Mitchell. Here's the thing. Mitchell Robinson. He's an interior guy, defense and rebounds. You don't need him to get a bucket to be successful. That's what the Knicks. That's what the Knicks need a guy like DeAndre Ayton. Because if Randall is having an off day, which he tends to do, you have DeAndre Ayton who averages nearly 20 and 10. Which could help out the Knicks. And the Suns in return, you don't need a guy that is super dependent on getting touches because you have Beal, Booker, and KD. You have a guy that could play defense, which Ayton has a tough time doing against the bigger guys. And you have a guy who could rebound. And you have a guy down low primarily. You don't need to send him out in the wing or keep him mid-range.
I think you'd have to add something to Mitchell Robinson to do Ayton.
No, you would. But I'm saying that would be a decent trade. The skill level is obviously not there because Mitchell isn't a 20 and 10 guy. But on the rebounds and the defensive side, I think you could sort of, it'd be not terribly close, but close enough where you could add other pieces to make it a more even trade. But I think
maybe that might be something that
Ayton
could be
to the
considered.
Knicks, Mitchell Robinson to the Suns. I think that would be a decent trade. Or you could pick up like a Brook Lopez, but then again, Brook Lopez, he's an older center, he's a shooter, not a tremendous defender.
Doesn't like to play center.
So I'm saying you may need to go out and get some sort of a trade going with another team, but then again, you don't really have the assets because you have no bench. So it's now just Beal, KD, and Booker and Ayton. Those are your only guys that really have substantial value. You really have nobody else that has significant trade value. So I'm not sure what exactly the Suns will do.
Who's on the bench for the Suns now?
You got Cameron Payne, who's been there for a hot minute. Ishmael Wainwright, Isaiah Todd, Jordan Goodwin, who I believe they might have just drafted. Oh, no, they got by a trade, sorry. I'm not sure exactly what you can get out of the Suns because you literally have nobody.
Did they pick up anybody in the draft?
I don't have the draft picks in front of me. But then again, I don't think you would trade a draft choice that you just made. At least I don't think so. I could be wrong, but I think you actually want some of that.
I wonder if they got a center.
Talent.
I wonder if they had a center. I don't know.
But then again, he's a center. So what are you gonna like? Or he's a young center. You're gonna put him up. You're gonna put him against a guy like Giannis or Jokic,
you're not,
and just say, "Hey, here, you're starting the lineup over Ayton." I'm not sure that's a great idea. So. I wouldn't be surprised if they keep him because it's like, what other options?
I think
they
will
have?
Because I don't think they have many other options. But maybe the Mitchell Robinson thing is something you could pull off. I don't know.
But then again, you have to put up with him not being happy with getting touches when KD, Booker, and Beal go off. Because guess what? He wants to get that bucket.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The Mitchell Robinson trade might be something that could work because Mitchell Robinson doesn't like to shoot first. He's a defensive type of guy, rebounder.
That's what I'm going with. I'm sure there are other teams. The first name that pops off to my head, though, that makes the most sense, a guy that doesn't need a bucket, the guy that's rebounding in defense primarily, Mitchell Robinson off the top of my head. So I'm sure there are other options, but once again.
Well, it sounds like they're not going to trade him.
Yeah, based on what they're saying and maybe what Frank Vogel can get out of DeAndre Ayton, they'll keep him. He'll average 20 and 10 or nearly. Who knows? Maybe the numbers will drop off, at least points-wise, because maybe Beal demands more points than Chris Paul did. because it was Chris Paul, a hint of KD, and Devin Booker that were the main bucket getters. Chris Paul wasn't a tremendous scorer, so maybe Beal averaging nearly 20. Maybe you only get 15, 12 points out of Ayton, and maybe you get a couple more rebounds, or maybe about the same amount of rebounds. So who knows what Ayton will, spice up in the middle of the season. Maybe some trade rumors mid-year if they decide to keep him, but I'm not too sure. But it'll be interesting to see what exactly happens with this DeAndre Ayton situation and what the Suns do moving forward. All right, we're going to take a break. Coming up, the 49ers and Rams could be battling it out for a future free agent quarterback next year, and I make my preseason NFL standing predictions right after this.
You have a lot to say. Maybe you've thought, I should start a podcast. Meet Anchor, the easiest way to make a podcast ever. It's a powerful mobile app and web tool that lets you record a podcast anywhere and distribute it everywhere. It's great whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out. And it's 100% free. You can record your show straight into Anchor on your phone, iPad, or the web, using any mic you want. Record alone or with friends or co-hosts anywhere in the world. You can add background music and transitions, and your listeners can send you voice messages that you can incorporate right into your next episode. If you want to produce your show using another app, you can upload your own audio directly from web or mobile and still take advantage of Anchor's totally free podcast hosting. Once your podcast is ready to publish, Anchor can automatically distribute it to every major podcast platform. That includes Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify, so your listeners can hear your show wherever they want. And on the web, you can see detailed analytics about how people are listening. Plus, you'll get a great-looking profile page where anyone can listen to your podcast or subscribe to it. And if you want to ask your audience to support your work, Anchor makes it easy to collect monthly payments from the people who love your podcast and want to see it grow. You really don't need a recording studio, expensive equipment, or a bunch of technical knowledge to deal with a podcast feed. Just get started and join the diverse community of podcasters already on Anchor. We can't wait to hear your podcast.
Introducing video podcasts on Spotify.
Transform your storytelling into a show everyone can watch
Or listen to.
Easily upload your video through Anchor, Spotify's free podcast creation tool.
So whether you're showing off a new recipe,
Interviewing an exclusive guest,
or uncovering the next mystery,
you can now reach a whole new audience with Spotify.
podcasting just became more than audio.
Create with Anchor, watch on Spotify.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name is Nathan Harvey, and as always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic because I think it's pretty interesting and pretty strange altogether. Because according to Mike Florio on the Rich Eisen show, he said that the Rams and 49ers could have a, quote, tug of war over Kirk Cousins if he decides to become a free agent in 2024, which is next year. Very, very strange that someone would be going after Kirk Cousins, especially like these two teams, the Rams and the 49ers. But I'm going to ask you, would it be smart for either team, the 49ers or the Rams, to pursue Kirk Cousins?
Well, maybe the Rams, but I don't see why the 49ers would be interested in him. I mean, he's an older quarterback, and he's never won anything, really. A couple of playoff games, not much. He's never gotten that deep into the playoffs. Last year, he fourth and whatever it was, he threw the ball way behind the first down marker. What was he thinking about?
It was a 4th and 9. He threw a 4-yard route.
Yeah. So I'm not. Kirk Cousins got some pretty good stats. He's had some very good receivers to throw to, too. So I'm not that high on Kirk Cousins. I don't know why the 49ers would be that interested in him. I can see why the Rams might be because
Matt Stafford.
Matthew Stafford has had injury problems throughout his career, and most recently last year with the Rams. And when he was in there, he didn't play that well. And even in the Super Bowl year, he threw a lot of interceptions. So I think that, and they have him locked up now for another 2 years, Matthew Stafford, or is it one more year?
I think it's actually
2 more years, isn't it? After this year.
I thought it was 3 more because it wasn't a 4-year extension. I'll look at the contract right now. He becomes an unrestricted free agent in 2027.
So
4 more
I don't know
years.
why they'd be looking at Kirk Cousins, unless Kirk Cousins has a fantastic year, right? Gets deep into the playoffs, plays really well in the playoffs, has really good stats, not many interceptions. Then maybe it would make sense for the Rams to look at him. I don't know why the 49ers would. They have Purdy, who I think is look how well he did as a rookie.
They also have your guy Trey Lance as well.
Trey Lance. I haven't given up on Trey Lance either. I have not given up on Trey Lance. I think that he should be given a shot as well.
I find it interesting how the 49ers and Rams, they were at each other's throats. Remember Kyle Shanahan's, 7 or 8-0 against Sean McVay in his coaching career. I think almost all or nearly all of the games were with Jimmy G as the head quarterback of the 49ers. And now they're battling it out for, the 13th best quarterback, 14th best quarterback in the league, are they trying to sign him as a backup quarterback? I'm not too sure. Because, like you said, Brock Purdy is a young quarterback who showed a lot of promise when he was fully healthy last season. And the Rams have Matthew Stafford, who they just won a Super Bowl with 2 years ago, for 4 more years.
Maybe Mike Florio is just trying to make noise. I don't know. What insight does he have that he thinks that the Rams and the 49ers are going after?
You know what these these unknown sources.
He's got us talking about it. He's got us talking about it. I don't know whether the rest of the world even believes this is something that is even possible or even contemplated. I don't think. Who knows? Anything can happen, but I think it's unlikely either team will be that interested in him.
Well, the first thing we have to premise is this is all a big if. If the Vikings don't re-sign him. That's the thing. He's on a 1-year deal as of right now. Then he has a bunch of void years. They could extend him if they want, or they could let him test out free agency. There's only a couple teams, and we went over this even with Trey Lance. There's a couple teams where you could be like, okay, they could look at a quarterback. The Raiders, Jimmy G may not be healthy. Even then, he's not healthy throughout his career. I don't think he's ever started a complete full season. And Washington, who have Sam Howell as a quarterback. For me, you could also add the Falcons. Desmond Ritter's a young quarterback, but we don't know how good he will be. It seems like he isn't all that great. I could be wrong this season with Patterson back, with Drake London, with Kyle Pitts, with a lot of talent, with Algier, the running back. So I'm not too sure. There are only a couple teams. Are the Colts really going to, or the Titans really going to stick with Will Levis, who supposedly is had a horrible mini camp, had horrible OTAs, had accuracy issues, so it's not looking too good. Then you have Ryan Tannehill. You got rid of, you basically have no hope in Malik Willis to bring you to the promised land. So there may be a couple teams out there that would,
look at Kirk Cousins.
But then there may be...
I don't think Washington's going to look at him. Because
you think they're going to stick with Sam Howell?
Well, I don't think they're going to bring back Kirk Cousins. He was with Washington before.
That is true.
I don't think they bring him back.
Okay, no, that could be a fair point.
And I do think the Vikings probably, if Kirk Cousins has a good year, they'll really try hard to re-sign him because who else are they going to get?
I would say...
Who else is going to be available to get?
That's a
right?
good point. No, good
and
point.
Justin Jefferson is somebody that needs a decent quarterback to throw him the ball, and you want one, right? Because he's your major weapon.
No, I agree with you. Except there's a big problem with Kirk Cousins' game. I can't remember the last time he won in primetime. I can't. When you put him underneath, the stage lights of a big football game, Thursday night football, Sunday night football, he chokes. He lost to Daniel Jones and looked horrible doing it. He threw a 4-yard pass on a 4th and 9 for the last play of that game. He shrinks. He's a bad quarterback when, all the cards are pushed to the table and you expect him to go out and shine against a top-tier team. He can't do it. He really can't. For instance, the only time this season that he won a primetime game, a night game, a Thursday night game. Remember that Thursday night game the Vikings won? It's against the New England Patriots. And it wasn't because he dominated that game.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it was. It was because the Patriots special teams decided, he headbutt the punter, was that? And they got a big penalty, and they drove down and won the game. I know that's a bad memory for you.
Yeah.
But that's the truth. It wasn't Kirk Cousins lighting up the Patriots. Mac Jones, that was one of his best games that year.
Yep.
Was against this Vikings team. But think about week 2 against the Eagles. They lost 24-7. Then you go up against the Patriots, you beat them. guess what? You had really no big-time games. Outside of 1 p.m., Kirk Cousins was pretty small. You lost to the Packers 41-17 after you beat them in week 1. In November 20th, you lost 40-3 against the Cowboys. The Cowboys
all their losses were by big scores.
Here's another thing.
They did have that game where they came back against the Colts.
Yeah, they did.
Right?
Yeah, biggest comeback.
That was pretty amazing. It was the biggest comeback in NFL history.
Yeah. I'll say this, though. I will say this. Kirk Cousins is a decent to decently good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback. Nowhere near a great quarterback. He can't do the stuff Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, Pat Mahomes. He can't do that. Joe Burrow. But he's also not terrible. I would say he's about Dak Prescott-y. A B to B minus on a really good day. On 1 p.m. day, you can get him to a B plus. On average, he's a B. Yeah. He's a B. But I also don't think they're going to go 11-0 in one-score games this season. My guess is they'll probably sort of split in one score. Let's say they have 11 opportunities, 11 one-score games again. My guess is they go 6-5. Could be. Because I do not see them going 11-0 in one-score games with a worse defense because you lost Patrick Peterson, sorry. You lost some of your good guys. You already had the 31st ranked defense, and now your defense arguably is worse because Zadarius Smith also wants to be gone. So I'm not entirely sure the Vikings could set up another NFC North W. Well, I'm going to get into that in our next topic. But, the Rams, like you said, Matt Stafford, injury prone. We've seen him, and apparently the elbow could be something that lingers. It cannot be 100% healed, and he can move off of this. This could be a lingering problem. When we first heard about it, I think there was one report saying the doctor's never seen this in an NFL quarterback before. Yeah. And now he could be dealing with this over seasons and seasons, or however many seasons he has left. Mm-hmm. The 49ers, sort of the same thing. Brock Purdy got hurt. Trey Lance is dealing with injuries. You got Sam Darnold, who's a big-time bust, and Kyle Shanahan has a lot of faith in him for some reason. So
I don't understand that. We talked about that last time.
We did. We talked about it on Friday. Yeah. So I'm not entirely sure,
Maybe the Rams will go after Trey Lance.
That could be something.
Huh?
That could be something.
They have Stafford locked up until 27, right? What are they going to do with him?
Yeah.
They have to have him there, so why not bring in a guy like Trey Lance, who has the ton of potential but is not proven yet? And if Stafford gets hurt, then he gets his chance.
Well, they did sign Stetson Bennett. Remember the
who the hell's he?
The Georgia quarterback. Won a couple national championships on a 4-year deal. He'll be 29 by the time his rookie year is done, or his rookie contract's over, because he's 25 years old now. Yeah. So they do have a young quarterback, but I'm shocked. Some of these quarterbacks, like for instance Stetson Bennett, he won I think 2 national championships.
Now, he's not the physical specimen though,
but
right?
He looked great in college.
Yeah, he did. So he played on a great team.
He did.
Yeah,
he did. But then, Jalen Hurts played on a great team. Mac Jones played on a great team. Joe Burrow played on a great team. They were all like first-round picks.
Yeah.
So I just find, they have Stetson Bennett, who's right now on the depth chart below Brett Ripien, which is interesting. They have 4 quarterbacks currently on the depth chart. I'm sure when the practice squad opens up, you'll probably put a couple of these quarterbacks on.
My prediction is that Kirk Cousins, if he has a decent year, the Vikings will find a way to retain him.
Do you think that's I'm sure you'll say yes to this, but do you think he's the best option there for
the Vikings?
For the Vikings?
I'm not sure who else they would get. I don't know who else has got contracts coming due that are great quarterbacks out there.
Most of the you get Trey Lance?
Well, he'll probably be available at the end of this year.
He should be, because if they're not going to use him, he's a 3rd overall pick. Right.
They could get something for him.
Well, apparently now you can't get anything for him. He has no trade market.
Yeah, I don't know. Somebody ought to try to go get him then. If he's not worth anything, you could get him for a 7th round pick or something like that.
Maybe.
I bet the 49ers wouldn't give him up for a 7th round pick.
I don't think so either.
I don't think they would. I think they still think there's going to be something there for him if those other quarterbacks get hurt.
If another team's interested, though, I wouldn't just go say, give us a 2nd round pick for Trey Lance. I don't think they should be, overvaluing him because they're not even going to use him.
Yeah.
So,
what do you think's going to happen to Kirk Cousins?
Well, here's the thing. Here's a little.
If he has a great year this year, what's going to happen?
Well, define great year. They win 13 games again.
They win 13 games, or even 12 games, and or even 11 games, and they get in the playoffs, and they go deep into the playoffs. Maybe they lose in the second round, but it's a very close game, or they make it to the NFC Championship game. If they made it to the NFC Championship game, I guarantee you the Vikings are going to be trying hard to re-sign him.
Oh, they're going to sign to probably a 3-year deal after that. I mean, they've been doing 1-year fully guaranteed contracts. If Kirk Cousins brings it to an NFC Championship game, they're going for a long-term deal. And my guess is, based on the way Kirk Cousins does things, it'll be a fully guaranteed deal because that's what he's been getting for a number of years.
Yeah. He's made a lot of money.
He has made a lot of money.
The guy's made a lot of money. He took some risks to get it, but he got the money. Doing the 1-year deals is risky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll agree with you. If Kirk Cousins does have a good year, let's say 4,500 yards, 35 touchdowns, he's an interception guy, so I'll go 12 to 15 picks, 66% completion percentage, relatively what he had last year, except a couple more touchdowns. Also, they can go long-term deal. I think he's back there. Or they take a huge risk and say, you had a great year. We're going to give you up now. Although you would, no, that wouldn't work because then you'd be a free agent anyway. You have to sign him and then trade him again, which I'm not sure. The cap hit will be tremendous, so you wouldn't do that. So my guess would be, no. If he has a year like he had last year, but it's impossible to say, but has more consistency in big time games, it doesn't choke outside of 1 p.m., then I think they go maybe a 2 to 3 year deal.
Oh, well, he didn't choke very often. I mean, they did win 13 games last year.
They did, but they also won
11
of those.
It's only 4 losses.
No, that is. But 11 of those 13 wins were 1-score games, and they had some whack wins against the Bills. The fumble on the goal line that they brought back for a touch. That was a weird game. The Patriots game, they won because of some special teams
You
problems.
generally play well in a 1-score win. You do some good things. So he did do some good things.
That is true. No,
I say that if he has a year like he had this year, and they get one game deeper into the playoffs, that the 49ers do all the Vikings will do all they can to retain him.
I'll agree with that.
And I bet they'll be successful at it too. Because he lives up there, he's been there a number of years. He's probably comfortable there. He knows the coaching staff now. So I tell you, they give him the money and the guarantee, then he'll probably stay there. But if he has a stinker year, then I'm not sure why the 49ers and the Rams would be interested in him.
That's a good question.
Yeah. He's no youngster.
I'll say this, and it's a hot take, but it shouldn't be. Kirk Cousins is not a terrible quarterback. He's not. He's a good quarterback. He's above average. Like I said, he's a B to, on a good day, a B plus. He's Dak Prescott with slightly less mobility. That's who he is. He doesn't have the tremendous arm, but a good player comp would be a Dak Prescott. He's not a great quarterback. He's not the level of a Mahomes or anyone like that. But he's not also like a Justin Fields at the moment. Justin Fields is still, not a tremendous quarterback. We'll see how he looks this year. He's not a Jimmy G type of a quarterback. Jimmy G, what he used to be before the injury. He's not a bad quarterback. He's not Davis Mills. He's not a Ryan Tannehill right now. He's better than that. Significantly better than that. He won 13 games. Justin Jefferson has a huge part in that. And also, we'll see what they look like without Dalvin Cook, who was a 1,000-yard rusher almost every single season. So
who's their running back now that they lost Dalvin Cook?
I think it's Alexander Madison, if that's his name. He's a pretty efficient backup
Dalvin
running
Cook is
back.
a talent. I think he's a pretty good talent.
Absolutely.
He didn't get all those runs by them opening truck-sized holes to run through. He managed to create some of those runs on his own. So,
they don't have the best offensive line. They have a good left tackle, Christian Darrisaw, but outside of that, their O-line isn't tremendous. Like I said, their defense got, you could say, worse. So they could be the worst defense in the league this year. You drafted Jordan Addison, which is a good pickup, good wide receiver. He's your wide receiver too because you lost Adam Thielen. He went over to the Panthers. You still got Justin Jefferson. This team could look interesting because I think Dalvin Cook was a big part of this offense along with Justin Jefferson. So we'll see how this opens up. You're gonna rely a lot more on Kirk Cousins, I think. You can't do the play action as much as you used to with Dalvin Cook. So my guess is Alexander Madison won't put in the same amount of efficiency as Dalvin Cook did. You rely on Kirk Cousins a lot more to stay in the pocket, make the throws that are needed. This could be a make or break year for whether Kirk Cousins stays on the Vikings or not.
I agree with that.
We'll see. All right, let's get into our last topic because I think it's interesting. I've seen a couple sports news stations do this where they make, they have some games, they make predictions here and there. And I've done this before. I did this once. We've done the show for about a year and a half now. So last season I did a couple of standings predictions, and I made the rule. I reserve the right to change this twice after the preseason and after week 8, so about midway through the year. And I will also eventually do my top 10 quarterbacks again and Nate's notches, the categorizing each team. So that'll come in later in the summer and throughout the preseason, throughout the NFL season. So let's get into my preseason NFL standings predictions. Let's go with the AFC East. For the first team, the top team, I got the Buffalo Bills. Hands down, they're the best team in this division. Josh Allen is a top 3 to top 5 quarterback. Sean McDermott's back there. He re-signed to a big deal, so he'll be there until I think 2027. Your offensive line has some problems. Your running game also has some problems. Those are your big, whoopses on offense. So there's a little bit there. Your defense is still great. You got Von Miller back. You brought back your defensive backs, Poyer and Hyde. So you're good on defense. Your offensive line and your running backs are a little bit iffy, but with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, I don't see a lot of problems there. The Jets, you got Aaron Rodgers. You should be better. You should be better. Because guess what? You almost made the playoffs with Zach Wilson, Mike White, and Joe Flacco as your starting quarterbacks. And I think you also had Chris Streveler in there for one of those games, which is quite interesting. So my guess is you're going to be better. You'll probably make the playoffs. And then Aaron Rodgers will most likely do what Aaron Rodgers does in the playoffs and choke away your game. That could be fair. The Dolphins, I don't know if I expect Tua to be healthy all 17 games, but I do think they'll be better than the Patriots. They upgraded on defense. You got Jalen Ramsey, which is huge. You still have Jalen Waddle. You have Tyreek Hill, and you have Tua back from his concussions. So you should be a better team. Your offensive line could be better this year. You lost Gesicki, who you didn't really use all that well. He's now in the Patriots. So the Dolphins should be better than the Patriots. They should be slightly about the Jets level or slightly below. So that's where I am. And then the Patriots, arguably the slowest offense, but you do have a new OC in Bill O'Brien. Promising things are coming out of minicamp with Mac Jones in this offense. You only have Ramondre Stevenson as a definite running back right now. I don't think Pierre Strong Jr. or Kevin Harris? Yeah, Kevin Harris, I don't think he's going to be your main running back 2 or whatever. Dalvin Cook's on the market. Zeke's on the market. You have options that you could potentially get, and also you could be getting D-Hop. Your defense, I have no worries with the defense because that's what Bill Belichick drafts. He knows defense. He's the best defensive coach in NFL history, so I have no problem with the defense. The defense was like a top 10 defense last year. I got no problems with that, and Christian Gonzalez seems to be tearing up in minicamp, so we'll see. No problems, but the Patriots do come in last because the AFC East is arguably now the strongest division in football with the amount of talent that's coming in to the AFC East.
In last place if they had DeAndre Hopkins and Dalvin Cook? What if they pick up both of them? You still think they're going to be last place?
I think offensive line and speed is going to be their problem. DeAndre Hopkins is 31 years old. We don't know if he could still get that juice he still has. And once your offensive line is a bunch of mishmash of random people. Trent Brown is not as good as he used to be. You're swapping left and right tackles. The left and right tackles are brand new. They're like tier 2 and tier 3 guys. Your center, David Andrews, is really your own primary piece that you have. That's a consistent piece. I don't trust Cole Strange. He had an on and off year last year. He didn't have a terrible year, but he didn't have all that great of a year. Onwenu, I don't know if I trust him fully at the right guard, so I'm not too sure. I don't feel great about this offensive line. So that's the big problem I have.
I think the Patriots will get the 3 spot there and make the playoffs, and the Dolphins will be in 4th place.
Interesting. All right, let's go for the AFC North. I don't think this is as controversial as people think for this reason. The Bengals are the better team than the Ravens. The Bengals have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. Joe Mixon is still your running back. Your offensive line still needs work, but it could be getting better throughout the year, throughout the seasons. Your defense has a little bit of an issue. I'm not sure if I entirely trust the defense, but you still have Trey Hendrickson. You still have a pretty good team overall, and you got Joe Burrow throwing your wide receivers and tight ends the ball. He's probably, in my mind, the number 2 best quarterback in the league. That's me personally. You can have whatever you want. Orlando Brown Jr. was a tremendous pickup on your offensive line, but your guards, I still have a little bit of a problem with Alex Kappa and Ted Karras, your center. Those weren't really tremendous pieces, at least when you got them, they were supposed to be good pieces. They didn't exactly perform as they did the prior seasons, but your defensive line is good. Your corners, I got a problem with. They're not exactly lockdown corners, so going up against the Chiefs, maybe with Mahomes and the Andy Reid scheme could be a little bit difficult, but I still put the Bengals above the number 2 team in the AFC North, the Baltimore Ravens. Guess what? Lamar got weapons. This is what people have been asking for. Get Lamar some weapons. He needs receivers. So you got him a couple receivers. You drafted one. You drafted Zay Flowers, and you also got him OBJ. OBJ could have won Super Bowl MVP a couple seasons ago, so I don't want to hear how he's washed. We'll see how he looks. He did come off an ACL injury, but it seems like he's doing fine. He posted workout videos before he got signed. Zay Flowers is a speed receiver, which is going to be good for those haters that say that the Ravens don't have speed. You also are getting your receivers back. Rashad Bateman and Duvernay are both coming back. Your offensive line has been, I think, since Lamar got drafted by the Ravens, they've been the number 4 on average offensive line. So offensive line has never been the issue for Lamar. Your defense. What?
Tight end. They have a very good
Mark
tight
Andrews,
end.
yeah, absolutely. Mark Andrews is a tremendous tight end for them. He's top 3 in the league. Your defense, I have faith in the defense. Not a lot of people do. It definitely had its moments where it sucked, especially second half of the year. It had its problems, but I think with Lamar being the Lamar people are telling me he's a great thrower. I know he's a tremendous athlete, but I think he should be able to do enough damage for the rest of the teams in the NFL. This is where people may disagree with me. The Pittsburgh, I know we won't, but the Steelers over the Cleveland Browns, or as I call them, the Cleveland Clowns. By the way, that is a new logo that they have. I think it's a pretty cool logo. The Steelers, Kenny Pickett, he started off not too hot. He had like 3 interceptions in his first game. He didn't look too good. But as he progressed throughout the season, he looked even better and better and better. Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season. I thought he would have one last year. It turned out to not be the case because they got a win late in the year. So it is what it is, but Kenny Pickett and the Steelers defense is only going to get better with TJ Watt, Minka Fitzpatrick. I mean, this team is tremendous. The Cleveland Browns, I don't know what I'm going to get for Deshaun Watson. He seems like he had a lot of rust last year. I don't know if that'll carry over into this season, but you do have Amari Cooper. You still got Nick Chubb. You got rid of Kareem Hunt, who's also a free agent running back, I should have mentioned. So I don't know exactly what this Cleveland Browns team would look like. Your offensive line has always been top 3 for the past 5 seasons, which is incredible. Your defense, you still got Myles Garrett. You still have a pretty good defensive 7. I don't know, but I just don't think Deshaun Watson is the guy you're spending $230 million fully guaranteed on. That's my own opinion, but I do have the Cleveland Browns at the number 4 spot in the AFC North.
That's a new logo?
That's a new logo. Yeah, it's a dog. It's a dog. DAWG.
Yeah, the dog pound.
That's how they roll now. All right, let's go to the AFC South. So this one, honestly, you could take a look at the AFC South and be like, the 2 South divisions, AFC and NFC, could be the worst divisions in football.
Yeah.
Because all you have is the Jaguars, and this season you have the Saints. Those are the only 2 main teams, because I think the Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence, now you're adding Calvin Ridley to a wide receiver core that could have beaten Patrick Mahomes last season if you actually capitalized on the 2 opportunities you were given. The Jaguars maybe could have been in the Super Bowl last year. We don't know. But as is, you still have Christian Kirk. Again, you still have Travis Etienne. You have Trevor Lawrence. Now you have Calvin Ridley. This team looks good, and your defense was surprisingly efficient. You also have a Super Bowl winning head coach in Doug Peterson. The Jaguars should easily take the AFC South and could honestly be a top 1 or 2 seed, honestly, if they perform as they look on paper. So we'll see. The Titans. You have no real threat at wide receiver. Your tight ends aren't really that good. Your offensive line, you drafted an offensive lineman. I'm not sure exactly what you're going to do there. Your defense isn't all that great. The Titans are just a bad team. But in the AFC South, where you're going up against teams like the Colts and the Texans who have their own problems, you could sort of eke out maybe 8 or 9 wins and still get the number 2 spot in the AFC South.
Still have Derrick Henry.
You'd still have Derrick Henry as well, but he's been dealing with injuries as of late, so we're not exactly sure what kind of Derrick Henry we're getting, and he'll get gassed throughout the year because I don't think Ryan Tannehill throwing to the wide receiver core that the Titans have will be that efficient, so you'll rely on Derrick Henry a lot more.
Maybe Levis will be the quarterback.
I don't know about that. Will Levis don't look too hot, even though I had a lot of faith in him. But yeah, I don't think Ryan Tannehill throwing to Treylon Burks and Nick Westbrook, I can't even pronounce that second part of his last name. I don't think throwing to him consistently will bring you all that amount of success. So I think they're an 8 or 9 win team. I don't think they're all that hot. So, but once again, you're going up against you play the Texans and Colts twice a piece. So I don't exactly think you'll be able to drop that far down. But let's go to the number 3 spot, the Texans. CJ Stroud. I think this team is going to get surprisingly decent. They're not going to be good. They're going to be surprisingly decent. They win about 6-7 games. Maybe if they get lucky, then they win 8. Maybe. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm saying maybe.
I think they'll be very lucky to win 8 games.
So I'm saying they go 7-10 with CJ Stroud. The team made a lot of moves in the offseason. I'm not saying they won the offseason because there's a lot of teams that made bigger, better moves, but you got Dalton Schultz, who was a extremely efficient part of the Cowboys offense last season. You got Robert Woods as your wide receiver 1. You got Noah Brown, former Cowboys receiver, as your wide receiver 2. Amari Rodgers, who had catching problems, fumble problems with the Packers last year. He's there. Your rookie running back. Now your second year running back, Damian Pierce. He'll be there. You got Devin Singletary from the Bills. You were making moves, and you have CJ Stroud as your starting quarterback. I thought he was arguably the best quarterback in this past year's draft. So, once again, you also signed, you got Shaq Mason from the Buccaneers, and you signed Laramie Tunsil to the biggest offensive lineman
deal.
Then
they drafted the rookie defensive guy, too, right?
Yeah, you got also Will Anderson as well.
Will Anderson, yeah.
So, and you also got Shaquille Griffin, who's a pretty good defensive back as well. So this team could, on paper, it looks pretty good. It can win, 7,
they
maybe
got
8 games.
A rookie head coach.
They do, but I think DeMeco Ryans will get the job done. The defense was a huge part. I think Davis Mills could have been a little bit, I'm not saying he's going to be tremendous, but he could have been a little bit better with a better defense. Maybe one or two more games with a better defense. DeMeco Ryans, who's a former Houston Texan, he'll come in. I think he'll shape up the defense pretty well. I say the Texans win 7 games. And the Colts. The Colts, their offensive line was an entire mess last year. They were moving pieces in and out. I think they had almost the most offensive lineman moves in NFL history. So I was shocked because they have arguably the best guard in the game in Quentin Nelson. You also had Matt Ryan, who was supposed to be the upgrade over Carson Wentz, who honestly didn't have that bad of a year. Jonathan Taylor was dealing with injuries. He'll be back. Michael Pittman, who I still love as a receiver, he'll be down to play. You drafted Josh Downs. So your team looks pretty good, at least wide receiver-wise. But as of right now, which is interesting that I'm looking at this, ESPN has Gardner Minshew above Anthony Richardson on the depth chart, which I find very, very fascinating. Because if you're going to start Gardner Minshew, I feel actually a little worse about this standing pick, because I think Gardner Minshew could win 1 or 2 more games than Anthony Richardson can. So I think the Colts, honestly, are a 5-win team, 5-6-win team. I don't think they're all that great. Truthfully, I don't think they're all that great. Your defense has been pretty good, but you did lose Stephon Gilmore, who I think is actually a pretty big loss for you, because you actually could have lost to Denver last year if it wasn't for Stephon Gilmore interception. You still got DeForest Buckner, you got Shaq Leonard, you got Zaire Franklin, I think is a pretty good slot linebacker. So you know what? I'm taking a look at this team here. It's a 5-6-win team. I don't think it's all that good personally. Let's move on to the AFC West. This is going to be a breeze. The Raiders are going to not be all that great. I love Jimmy G. I don't think he can get it done, especially with a bad offensive line and the defense that was surprisingly terrible. You need defensive backs. Right now, it's not looking too good for your team. Jimmy G may not even be healthy enough to play at the start of Week 1. He may not even be on the team at the start of Week 1. But I was shocked that you didn't really even draft a top-tier cornerback. I was blown away by it. Instead, you decided to get stuff that you didn't really need. Basically, this team is turning into, partially a Patriots team. You got Jacoby Myers, you got Brian Hoyer, you brought in Jimmy Garoppolo. Your offensive line still needs work. You got Austin Hooper, Brandon Bolden as well.
Tom Brady's a part owner.
Tom Brady is a part owner. You still have Hunter Renfrow. You lost Darren Waller. You replaced him with Austin Hooper. Michael Mayer, I think, is a good draft pick for the Raiders. I do think that's a good pick. He probably has the most skill as a rookie tight end in this past year's draft. You got O.J. Howard, who wasn't too great on the Bucs. But, you know what? I still think this team, I think in my rough mock, I have him winning 5 games, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't have a lot of faith in this team. I could be wrong. Denver, you won, 3-4 games last season? You probably should be able to double the amount of wins you had.
That would be 6.
So I don't have a tremendous faith, and I do think Russell Wilson is on a steep decline. You won 5 games last season, so you could
think Peyton can resurrect his career.
I don't think resurrection. I mean, truthfully, I don't see Russell Wilson being all that hot. He should be better. I don't think he'll be tremendous. I don't think he'll be back in his Super Bowl form. So I think, honestly, this is the way it's going to be. Look, Chargers, I think they're going to be a playoff team again. The Chiefs, I don't need to say anything about it. Mahomes, Andy Reid, that team, I don't even need to speak of that. They're the number one team. They'll probably be the number one seed overall. The Chargers, I don't love that they still have Brandon Staley. I don't love that, but they still do. They drafted a wide receiver that is escaping me right now. I'll try to find it quickly, but
he was a good pickup.
It was a good pick. I'll try to get it fast. Who they got as a wide receiver? Quentin Johnston, who a lot of people had actually as the best receiver in this draft. He was like ranked higher than like Jordan. He was ranked higher than like Jordan Addison and JSN. You still have Mike Williams. You got Keenan Allen. Austin Eckler. He doesn't want to be there. So I'm not too sure exactly what's going to happen with that situation. Rashawn Slater's coming back. Your defense, on paper, was supposed to be really good, and it didn't perform. You got Derwin James. You're going to bring back J.C. Jackson. You got Joey Bosa. You have Eric Kendricks, who's a pretty good linebacker. You still have Khalil Mack. You have Asante Samuel Jr.
Kyle Van Noy.
He's not on the team this year, I don't think.
Oh.
You have a lot of players that are really good on paper on defense, and they just didn't perform. So they should be a better team. I think I've been winning like 11, 12 games this season. So we'll see exactly what happens, but this is my AFC West standings. Let's get into the NFC now. NFC East. This is what it looked like last year. And honestly, the same win total besides the Philadelphia winning 14 games. I think they win 13 or 12 games. This is what it's going to look like. The Eagles are the best team in the NFC. I think that's indisputable. Hands down, the best team in the NFC.
Big turnover in their coaching staff.
I think we may be a little overblowing it. If the new guys come in and just play, or if they coach sort of what they were coaching last season, I think they're going to be fine. They have a lot of pieces on
Didn't
defense.
They lose some of their players too? I thought they lost a bunch of players.
Darius Slay was supposed to be off the team. He came back. I think you lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see how that does. But I think the Eagles will be fine. They have probably the best offensive line in the NFL. You brought back Lane Johnson. Jason Kelsey's coming back. You have all these pieces that are going to be phenomenal. You A.J. Brown. You have Devontae Smith. You got a lot of really great pieces for the Eagles. I think there's going to be not many problems with the Eagles going to next season. And Jalen Hurts, another year, through my pen, another year of, I think phenomenal quarterback play. The Cowboys. Mike McCarthy's the one calling shots. It won't be Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore's now on the Chargers. I don't think the Cowboys are going to be tremendous on offense. I really don't. But I think with the AFC East, the Giants aren't going to be phenomenal. The Commanders are going to be a complete mess. The Cowboys with that defense, I think that defense will carry them more than Dak Prescott will. You lost Zeke, which I think is a good thing. Tony Pollard, your main running back, which I also think is the good thing. The Giants, I don't want to hear nothing about the Giants sucking. I don't want to hear any excuses. Your offensive line's better. You got a brand new center. He should be great for you guys. You got Darren Waller. You got weapons. A lot of promising receivers. You should have Saquon Barkley by the time the season starts. And you got Daniel Jones, who people are telling me could be a top 10 quarterback. I'm not agreeing with that, but that's what I'm hearing in our comments section. So I'm going to say no excuses to the Giants, but truthfully, in the NFC East, the way I'm thinking, the way Daniel Jones should be playing, I think they're actually about the same as they did last year. 9-9. I'm not going to say they tie a game, so 9-8. I think they're going to go.
Yeah, I think they have a better team than they did last year, as long as they can sign Barkley.
Right? They have a lot more promise.
They picked up some good players, and they got some people in the draft too.
Correct, and so that's why I think
their defense played over its head last year.
You think
right?
so?
I do. I think they played over their head with their talent, with the talent they had. They had a very good defensive coordinator, and now I think their defense will be a little stronger next year.
Interesting.
Yeah, with the same defensive coordinator. So I think the Giants, on paper, look to be a little bit better team than they were last year.
Interesting. I don't think I necessarily agree with that. I think they're going to do relatively the same. Yeah. So I don't think Daniel Jones is going to go from 15 touchdowns.
I'm not sure that they would. Because they're a little better on paper, that they would beat out the Cowboys for second place there. But I do think they'll be competitive.
I'm going to say that Daniel Jones plays the exact same as he did last year because I think he's hit a ceiling. I don't think he's going to have more than, I don't think he's going to go from 22 total touchdowns to like 30 total touchdowns. I don't see that. Now, I could be wrong, but I really don't think so. Because I think the way the Giants are constructed and, Daniel Jones is just pure ability. He came from Duke. Duke's not a tremendous football program. They're a basketball program. I don't think I'm going to see Daniel Jones go from where he's at now, which is, about average, to then be, catapult himself into a solidified top 10 quarterback spot. I truthfully don't believe that, but we'll see. And then the Commanders, like I said, a complete mess. They have Sam Howell starting quarterback. I mean, Ron Rivera, I think, honestly, sadly, could get fired next year if they don't win, 8 games, 9 games.
New management, right?
They do?
New ownership.
They do.
Ownership.
Yeah, they sold
right?
the team.
And don't they, generally, the Commanders have a decent defense.
Generally, but yeah. Chase Young, it seemed me like they already want to get off Chase Young, which I think is interesting, but he was dealing with an injury, couldn't get healthy in time, so it looks like they may end up actually trading Chase Young, but we'll see exactly what happens there. But Commanders are a complete mess, so I think they'll be last in that division, and honestly, they could be fighting for that number 1 overall pick, but we'll see. The NFC North, this is a little bit of a shakeup that I don't think, I know you're surprised. The Lions had like a top 3 scoring offense, and for a large part of the first half of the season, were the highest scoring offense in the NFL. More than the Chiefs, more than the Bengals, more than any of your favorite teams, if it's not the Lions. Because guess what? It was the Lions. And now, with a good old line, with more talent on offense, I say, the Lions jump right in here. Now, I would have, their draft picks are questionable, but you did get a good linebacker. I don't love how you drafted a second-round running back as your first pick in the draft. Don't love that. You probably could have gotten him in the second round. I would have preferred you go get a Christian Gonzalez or get a Devon Witherspoon, something like that. Instead, you got a running back, which I don't necessarily love, but that ended up being the DeAndre Swift trade, so we'll see how Jahmyr Gibbs performs. The Lions are going to take this, though. The Lions are absolutely going to take this. I have a lot of faith in them, and my guess is they're going to go out and win, at least the NFC North. The Vikings, they went from the 31st defense, and then they gave up a couple of their defenders, traded them away, and so where are they going to be at now? You lost a pretty good wide receiver too in Adam Thielen. Now you're replacing with Jordan Addison. We'll see how that does. Your offensive line is a big question mark, I think. It's out of Christian Darrisaw, so my guess is they're going to be second. The 3 and the 4 spot is difficult. I think these teams are going to be pretty awful altogether. The Bears, while they did get some pieces in the first overall pick trade, I just don't think they're going to be all that great. I don't. They got an offensive lineman, which is pretty good because that's what they needed for Justin Fields. However, their team as an overall is not that great, and I do think it's going to be a battle for who's going to be last in the NFC North between the Packers and the Bears. These teams could be, half a game apart. My guess is they'll each probably win 6 to 7 games. It doesn't look like Jordan Love is all that hot because guess what? We haven't really seen, true practice. And we've seen a couple highlight throws, but nothing, saying that this guy is the guy for the Packers. But, I could be wrong. I have a lot of faith in the Packers because I think Jordan Love could do a lot of what Aaron Rodgers did last season. So my guess is they'll win 7-8 games. They won't be in playoff contention. I think the Bears are probably 6-7 wins, but we will see. NFC South.
Oh, wait,
you want
comment here.
Sure, NFC North.
Yeah. So Detroit, I think it's a gamble that they'll be first place. I mean, when was the last time Detroit had 2 years of good football in a row? Never. Never have they had back-to-back seasons where they played well. I think that the jury is still out on them a little bit. They had a good year. They started out horrible last year, and they resurrected themselves.
Still the
they could have made the
offense.
playoff. They needed a little help. They won that game against Green Bay at the end.
But the Seahawks won.
So they have a good launching point for the new season. Whether they can repeat a good season again, I think it's questionable. I would say maybe Minnesota takes the first spot.
I don't see Minnesota.
The others, I don't see the Green Bay. They lost Aaron Rodgers, and the Bears, they're always horrible.
So you don't disagree with number 3 and 4. You disagree with 1 and 2.
I think it's likely the Vikings will win the division. They won it last year.
Fair. Okay. No, we'll see though. This is the preseason.
I know.
We'll dictate how I feel after the preseason. Let's jump into the NFC South. The Falcons.
Another terrible division.
Like I said, the South divisions are terrible. I'll say this though: the Bucs and the Falcons. Those are the 2 ones that I think could flop. Honestly, could flip flop. I'm not 100% certain though, because I do think Tampa's defense will win a couple games. I do think because Todd Bowles is a great defensive coordinator. We'll see how he continues as a head coach. I do think, Devin White wanted a trade supposedly, but they decided to retain him and not trade him. So my guess would be this defense will win 1 or 2 games for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I think Baker Mayfield won't have a great year, but he'll have an okay year, which could mean I don't know, 2,900 yards. I think he'll have 15 touchdowns. He could have 9 interceptions, something like that.
That's not a very good season.
No, it's not a good season, but going from backup to starting for this team and doing that, I mean, is Mike Evans and Chris Godwin still a pretty good offensive line? You have Tristan Wirfs, who's probably the best right tackle, was left tackle. I think he's moved to right tackle now in the NFL. So I'm not too certain, how great the Bucs will be on offense, but I do think this defense will be okay to pretty good. I think they'll win 1 or 2 games against bad teams. Then maybe Baker Mayfield has a dip in performance, which he's prone to doing. The Falcons, I have no confidence in the Falcons. I don't trust it. You have you have an unproven, not really a lot of potential in Desmond Ridder. You have a okay offense line. Don't love it. You brought in Jonnu Smith. My guess would be, and based on the way Arthur Smith is going to put this offense to use, this is going to be a high running team, very, very high running team. So I could expect a lot of these scores between the Falcons and other teams to be very low scoring. I do think the Falcons could be a 4 to 5 win team. The Bucs are probably going to be a 5 win team probably. The Panthers, I think with Bryce Young, could be interesting because Sam Darnold almost made the playoffs with this team, and now you added a couple more pieces. You did lose DJ Moore, which I don't know how that'll affect how this offense performs, but you brought in Adam Thielen as your main wide receiver. It should be interesting to watch. So what I'll say is this division is so bad. Derek Carr and the Saints could win 9 games. I think the Bucs won 8 and 9 last season. The Saints are probably going to win 9 to 10 games most likely and take the division. They're the only team in this division that I feel tremendously confident about to win this. I don't think the Panthers are going to shock the NFC South and win this division or shock the NFL and be the number 4 seed.
They have a brand new coach and a brand new rookie quarterback.
I agree, but I just don't think.
Who is Atlanta's quarterback this year?
Desmond Ridder.
Yeah.
I think they should have gotten, I know he was gone, but Anthony Richardson, or they could have, maybe pursued Lamar Jackson, given him a contract, but it is what it is. The Saints are the only team that I think should be able to win this division. Panthers are probably going to win.
I just wonder whether the Panthers can make the second place there, but the other 2 teams look pretty bad too, so maybe you're right.
I just think, you
might have the second place team with a losing record.
Absolutely. I think that's what happened last year.
Yeah.
Except the only thing is that every team in the NFC South had a losing record, and the 2 to 4 seeds in the NFC South all went 7 and 10, which I find quite interesting. So I think, this is the way it's going to be. Saints with Derek Carr, they're just a better team compared to everyone else in the NFC South. So I'll take Derek Carr. Let's go, Derek Carr. He takes the NFC South. And to finally wrap up this long breakdown, the NFC West. This should be quickly. Honestly, people are going to be shocked at the number 2 and 3, I think. The Cardinals, they're going to be terrible because Kyler Murray's still hurt, and they were rated probably the worst. They were rated in your off-season grades as the worst franchise right now.
Brand new coach, too.
Brand new coach. Your offensive line is not great. You lost J.J. Watt, so your defense might not be all that great. You lost D-Hop. So now you're relying on Hollywood Brown, Randall Moore, Rondale Moore. I don't love this team at all. Kyler Murray's going to be out for a number of weeks, I'm sure. So they're a solidified number 4 seed. It's going to be them, the Commanders.
Who's going to be their starting quarterback?
That's a good question. I'm not 100% certain.
They had a bunch of no-names that were in there at the end of last year.
Let's see.
I'd never heard of before.
Let's see who's on the depth chart for the Cardinals at the moment. As of right now, the number 1 quarterback is Kyler Murray. Colt McCoy is number 2.
Oh.
They still have David. They still got David Blau on the roster.
He actually didn't do that badly.
No, he didn't. He didn't do terribly, but he is a fourth string quarterback. So they did get in. They did get Paris Johnson, who was the first offensive lineman picked. He should be a good offensive guard for you. Outside of that, you don't have tremendous talent. So the Cardinals are going to be a very, very bad team. Mm-hmm. Just wait.
You don't think Seattle might be able to knock the Rams out of the second place spot?
0 people have faith in the Rams. Did we forget that this Rams team just won a Super Bowl 2 years ago? And the only reason why they were god-awful last year is because they all got hurt. Cooper Kupp got hurt. Matthew Stafford got hurt. Their offensive line was completely banged up. Their defense got banged up. I mean, this entire team was a walking hospital. Now you're going to bring all those players back. Did we forget exactly what happened when the Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford connection was on?
Their offensive line was horrible, and they lost to Whitworth.
That's
Whitworth,
what it is.
Right.
They did.
Yeah, that made a huge difference for them. They're losing him, even though he was old. He retired.
Yeah.
But he was the solidifying element in that offensive line. They don't have it. Their offensive line is very questionable, I think.
I have faith in Sean McVay to get something figured out.
He was thinking about retiring.
He was.
Yeah.
He was. And now he's focused only on offense. The defense is going to be a complete mess. However,
I don't know, how can he say that as a head coach? I'm only focused on offense. That doesn't make sense to me.
it's Sean McVay.
Yeah, well,
Giving up.
I think
giving
he'll
up defensive
regret
pieces.
saying that. What's the defense think when the head coach says, I'm only focusing on offense? Huh?
I think they're just trying to win games based on the way
What's
last year.
Aaron Donald think about that?
Hey, Aaron Donald wrote his retirement letter 2 years ago before he won the Super Bowl. He's never mailed it into the NFL. No. So he was one foot out the door. So I don't think really he has much of a say.
He's coming back.
He is coming back. No, I
just think this is the defense when you say I'm only focused on offense. Did he actually come out and say that?
Through the grapevine.
Oh, through the grapevine.
Through the grapevine.
Okay, well, as long as he didn't make it public, then I give him, maybe he didn't really. He might have told that when he had one too many beers or something.
I'll say this, though. I have faith in the Rams. The odds makers don't have faith in the Rams. They think they're going to be a 7-8 win team. I think they're going to be closer to a 9-10 win team. Because once again, did we forget the connection between Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp? You brought back Sony Michel. You got Cam Akers back. Van Jefferson's still there. Tyler Higbee, who had a good season a couple years ago. I don't think he'll have a tremendous season, but it should be an efficient season. Your offensive line is the big question mark on offense. We'll see how it performs.
Did Seattle pick up anybody?
Well, Seattle had that weird draft where they drafted the two guys that they didn't need, JSN and was it Witherspoon that they drafted? Who did they draft? Let's see. I'll bring it up quickly because they drafted two guys they did not need. I think it was Witherspoon. Yeah, Devin Witherspoon they picked up. They got Bobby. They brought back Bobby Wagner.
They brought him back. Huh?
Yeah, no, they got DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, JSN. The offensive line is pretty good. Your defense was surprisingly great. You have Kenneth Walker. You're going to bring back Kenneth Walker again. I just think the Rams, they're going to be that high-powered offense I think we saw a couple years ago. And the 49ers, Brock Purdy should be a go for week one. They're the best. They could be on paper the best team head to toe because the Chiefs don't have the names that the 49ers do, yet they still win Super Bowls. So on paper, the 49ers from head to toe probably have the most depth and the best team. And you also have Brock Purdy, who was undefeated when he was truly healthy. So we'll see exactly what happens. I think the 49ers are going to win that NFC West pretty easily.
So do I.
12-13 win team. So after a long discussion, this is my AFC standings. Bills, Jets, Dolphins, Patriots, Bengals, Ravens, Steelers, Browns, Jaguars, Titans, Texans, Colts, Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos, Raiders. And the NFC is the Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, Commanders in the NFC East. The North is the Lions, Vikings, Packers, Bears. The South is the Saints, Panthers, Bucks, Falcons. And the NFC West, like I just said, is the 49ers, Rams, Seahawks, and Cardinals. I have a lot of faith so far. We'll see how I feel after preseason.
I think, you know what? I'm pretty much agree with you with the few exceptions that I mentioned. So we'll see as the preseason plays out. We'll take a look at it again. And I'm not making any of my picks until the preseason's over.
That's fine. I do think it's interesting, though. We'll see how teams perform. See what teams shock us. Because I do think there'll be definitely some shocks in the NFL, as there always are. Like we just saw the largest comeback.
You know what? I don't
history
think the
last year.
balance in the NFL is it's becoming more unbalanced. You look, there are whole divisions that stink.
Yeah.
Right? The NFC South is horrible.
Yeah.
Right? There'll be, I guess, they play each other twice, so I guess that makes it interesting because the two poor teams going against one another. It should be an interesting game, right?
Right.
Because either team's got a chance to win. And I'd say in all of those, except maybe the Saints, probably a little better because they got the best quarterback in the group in that division. And then in the AFC, there's a division there that's pretty weak too, right? The
AFC
South, right? Jaguars, Titans, Texans, and Colts, right? That looks pretty weak as well. Except the Jaguars, you're right. They could win a lot of games, right?
Yeah. Except both South teams are terrible. They're terrible. And honestly, I'm trying to briefly scan the NFC. Basically, you can go down based on the win losses because I'm going to say not a lot of people believe in the Rams. You could say that only two teams of each division at the most are really good teams. The other two in each division are either not all that great or terrible. I mean, just look at it. The Giants could be not great. The Commanders are terrible. The NFC South, the Panthers have some promise, but the Buccaneers and Falcons should be terrible. The Rams, nobody believes in, could be terrible. And the Cardinals are going to be absolutely horrible. The NFC North, the Packers lost Aaron Rodgers, and they went 8-9 with them last year. Now they have Jordan Love, who we don't know what the hell he's going to look like. And the Bears are still probably a complete mess. And in the AFC, you don't really have that. You have like the Steelers, who may be okay. The Browns, who I'm not sure.
The AFC is stronger than the NFC.
Significantly
it has been for several seasons, quite a few seasons.
But at least, sometimes the NFC could give you some problems. I mean, the Rams in 2018 just tore up the NFC with Todd Gurley and Jared Goff. Tore it up. I mean, right now, the AFC, there's only one division that is really questionable, and that's the AFC South, and the Jaguars are just far beyond the rest of the teams in that division. So, I mean, at least in the NFC, you have bad team versus bad team, maybe 4 times in a season. You don't have like one division that plays 6.
You go back to the NFC there.
Yeah.
As you said, the Commanders, the Panthers, the Buccaneers, the Falcons,
No
the
one believes in the
Cardinals,
Rams.
and the Bears, right? That's quite a few teams that are very poor.
Right. So
we'll see.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting. But that does wrap up this episode of the Harvey Hour. Thank you all for tuning in to today's episode of the Harvey Hour. I'll be back Wednesday with the Harvey Hour fired up, bringing that back this week. But you can catch both of us on Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. My name's Nathan Harvey. That's my dad, Stephen Harvey. We are the Harvey Hour. We'll catch you guys Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube.
Good night, Grandpa.
Introducing video podcasts on Spotify.
Transform your storytelling into a show everyone can watch
Or listen to.
Easily upload your video through Anchor, Spotify's free podcast creation tool.
So whether you're showing off a new recipe
Interviewing an exclusive guest,
or uncovering the next mystery,
you can now reach a whole new audience with Spotify.
podcasting just became more than audio.
Create with Anchor, watch on Spotify.